Woodworking can be a very expensive hobby, with tools costing upwards of thousands of dollars and performing only one task. Today I'm going to share 5 tools that I use on every project and that you can buy for under $35. Our first tool is a machinist square. Now, please don't pay attention to the fact that they're completely destroyed because I have not taken good care of them. They still work, I promise. What's the difference between a machinist square and a sliding adjustable square like this? Well, machinist squares are used by machinists. Those are people that make tools and make parts, and so they need to be way more accurate than those squares. Those squares are actually fairly accurate for the price point, but if you compare them, there's always a slight difference in squareness. And if you get one of those bigger ones, that can cause discrepancies over your pieces. I mostly use the big and a very small one. The large square is probably the one I use the most, and that is because I use it to tune up tools. The small square is super handy to check for square within small objects like boxes. I also use it a lot for marking joinery, or for checking that things are square like dovetails. Each of the square will set you back about $7 or $8, but you can buy a whole set for about $30. If you buy a whole set, they also come in this very handy box that should keep them protected from the elements. Now we're going to stay in the theme of measuring and marking because the second tool we're going to talk about is a marking gauge. This is a very cheap marking gauge from iGaging. I believe I paid $22 for it at the time, and I use it in every single project. So marking gauges are ideal for joinery because they give you a physical reference and they cut the wood fiber, which prevents tear out down the line. And that's the reason I've also been using marking gauges on materials like plywood to prevent tear out. My recommendation when buying one of these is to get some extra blades because they tend to dull out pretty fast, and you're not supposed to sharpen those. So get a set of extra blades if you can. Those will serve you a very, very long time. Now on a side note, I also have this fancy marking knife from KM Tools, and I really like it, but I would get a marking gauge before I get a marking knife because you can use utility knives that have a flat back as marking knives without any problem. They will serve the same purpose, but a marking gauge is something very useful and very unique. Now let's move away from the measuring marking tools. We're going to talk about finishing, and the tool that I have here is a card scraper. Some people refer to that as a cabinet scraper, but cabinet scraper is actually a very specific tool. So this is a card scraper. It's just a piece of steel that's been cut in a shape. You add a profile to it and it allows you to scrape your pieces of wood. But more specifically, card scrapers are really useful when removing planer marks or table saw marks, and also when sanding and shaping odd shapes. I see card scrapers as a very important part of my finishing process now. I actually have a whole set of card scrapers, and I think I picked it up for around $20. There's different shapes to accommodate for everything you'll need. And on the plus side, they're very easy to sharpen. All you need is a file and a dull tool. You can also splurge for a dedicated jig like this Rockler one, but all you need to know is that if you're generating shavings, you're doing something right. Tool number 4 is going to be a weird one because it is double-sided tape. Now, I know what you're going to say. Double-sided tape is not really a tool, it's a consumable. To me, double-sided tape is a tool because I use it in the same ways that I use clamps. And pro tip, get yourself a pair of scissors that you don't really care about and use that solely for double-sided tape instead of cutting directly on the surface, because if it is the show face of your piece and you're cutting directly with a utility knife, you're going to do some damage. So scissors people. Now the brand of tape I have is X-Fasten, but I know that there is so many brands out there, so please let me know in the comments which one you use and why you like it. And last but not least, the last tool that I want to talk about today is a set of calipers. Now I got my first set of calipers when I was doing a lot of 3D printing and modeling, and I needed very specific measurements, but then I ended up using it more and more around the shop. And let me show you how. Now there are multiple ways to measure with calipers. Obviously you can measure the thickness of something, that's the more classic way to use those. But you can also measure the space between two things, which would be hard to do any other way. Now where calipers shine to me is that you can also measure the depth of things with this little gauge at the back. And once you have this measurement, you can lock your calipers into place and you have this referential measurement that you can use to refer directly on your machine. I often use this method on the bench saw or the table saw, and then it can get my measurement just right without having to ever measure or remember numbers. You're just using the referential measurement of the calipers. Those are my first set of calipers from iGaging. Those are the Easy Cal, and I'm not sponsored by this brand, but that's probably what was the cheapest at the time, and they've held up really great over the years. But I also found those ones on a flea market, and they're kind of more my beater calipers that I have around the shop. I draw them constantly. I use them in ways that you probably shouldn't use them. So have 2 sets of calipers if you want to. I might get a 3rd one, who knows? Okay, that's it for the 5 tools that I use around the shop that are under $35. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. If you think I've missed some affordable tools that you use in every project, make sure to leave those down in the comments. I have some very exciting projects to share over the summer, so I'm looking forward to that, and I'll see you in the next video.